the winter of 1692, in Vienna, Maria Antonia of Austria struggled to recover from a difficult childbirth. She had just given birth to a son. As her strength began to fade, the news of the infant's arrival was being celebrated with enthusiasm in Madrid. Church bells rang out, and the city was illuminated. The Spanish Empire, which had endured years without a direct heir, suddenly saw the possibility of continuity. King Charles II had no children, and the question of succession kept the principal European courts in a state of tension. The newborn, Joseph Ferdinand of Bavaria, possessed dynastic rights that made him a central figure in that delicate problem. What for Spain represented hope became, for Maria Antonia, the most critical moment of her life. Yet her story had not begun there. From early childhood, she had been bound to political negotiations. At barely 6 years of age, she was proposed in marriage to her own uncle, King Charles II. Years later, her marriage to the Elector of Bavaria would once again serve purely strategic interests. The relationship was marked by public infidelities, prolonged absences, and an unmistakable indifference towards her. Maximilian maintained numerous mistresses and made little effort to conceal his lack of interest in his wife, a situation that left her isolated within the Viennese court. Before continuing with this fascinating biography, we invite you to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our videos. Without further ado, let's begin. Maria Antonia Josepha Benedicta Rosalia Petronilla was born on the 18th of January 1669 at the Habsburg Palace in Vienna. She was the daughter of Emperor Leopold I and his first wife, the Spanish Infanta Margarita Teresa. In her veins ran the blood of two powerful branches of the House of Habsburg. Her parents, uncle and niece to one another, embodied the dynasty's tradition of close consanguineous alliances. From an early age, Maria Antonia was effectively an only child. Her two infant brothers died in infancy, Ferdinand Wenzel in 1668 and Johann Leopold in 1670. To compound these early losses, her mother, Margarita Teresa, died in 1673, leaving the 4-year-old girl without maternal care. Despite these tragedies, the young princess was described as calm, serious, and intelligent, closely resembling her late mother in character. She grew up at the imperial court in Vienna under the direct supervision of her father, who ensured she received an education befitting her rank. Yet beyond the routines of childhood, an extraordinary destiny hovered over her, the throne of Spain. Her maternal uncle, King Charles II, was the last Habsburg monarch in Madrid and had no surviving heirs. According to the succession laws of the time, Maria Antonia, as the only living descendant of the Infanta Margarita Teresa, Charles's sister, held a legitimate claim to inherit the Spanish monarchy. From childhood, the court considered the possibility of a strategic marriage to secure that succession. Indeed, Leopold I at one stage planned for his daughter to marry her own uncle, King Charles II, thereby reuniting the crowns of Austria and Spain. For years, the young Archduchess grew up with the understanding that she might one day become Queen of Spain at her uncle's side. That consanguineous project, however, never came to fruition. Changing political circumstances thwarted the plan. The Spanish court, influenced by rival European powers, sought foreign brides for Charles II, and shifting diplomatic alliances redirected the monarch towards other matrimonial options. Maria Antonia saw this first blueprint for her life dissolve before she had even reached adolescence. Yet another plan, no less ambitious, would soon emerge. By 1684, as Maria Antonia approached young adulthood, a new candidate emerged for her hand, Maximilian II Emanuel, the young Elector of Bavaria. A German prince and hero of the recent war against the Ottomans, he belonged to the powerful house of Wittelsbach. His suitability as a husband was not a matter of affection, but of high European politics. The French ambassador in Vienna, the Marquis de Villars, described Maximilian with suspicion, portraying him as one of the most perverse minds and hearts one could imagine. Despite such reservations, Emperor Leopold I considered him a useful ally. Maria Antonia's hand was therefore granted to the Bavarian elector in a carefully calculated alliance. The wedding took place on the 15th of July, 1685 in Vienna, amid full imperial splendor. At just 16 years of age, Maria Antonia became Electress of Bavaria and prepared to begin her new life in Munich. Behind the celebrations, however, powerful dynastic strategies were at work. The marriage was intended to strengthen Habsburg claims in the looming Spanish succession crisis. Mariana of Austria, widow of Philip IV of Spain and Maria Antonia's grandmother, supported the match. She was convinced that any future children of her granddaughter would possess a stronger claim to the Spanish throne than the male heirs Leopold I had begun to father in his second marriage. For Mariana, promoting Maria Antonia's interests meant honoring the memory of her beloved daughter, Margarita Teresa, and preserving Spanish blood in the line of succession. Leopold I, however, had ambitions of his own. The emperor hoped that, should Charles II die without issue, the Spanish crown would ultimately pass to his own sons, Maria Antonia's half-brothers, rather than to his Bavarian son-in-law. As a result, he imposed a condition upon the marriage agreement. Immediately after her wedding, Maria Antonia was required formally to renounce her rights to the Spanish monarchy. In exchange, Leopold negotiated a substantial territorial compensation for the young couple. The promise of governance over the Spanish Netherlands, the wealthy provinces of Flanders under Madrid's authority. Maximilian Emmanuel verbally accepted this renunciation, yet he never treated it as binding, aware that such a document would hold little value without the approval of the Castilian Cortes. Privately, the ambitious elector still dreamed of claiming the Spanish throne for himself or for his heirs upon the death of the ailing Charles II. With the marriage concluded, Maria Antonia left Vienna to settle in Munich. What she could not foresee was how unhappy her married life would become. Maximilian II Emmanuel, extroverted, adventurous, and fond of pleasure, had little in common with the reserved and strictly educated Archduchess. The union had been forged for political convenience. There was no genuine affection. The elector himself was never in love with his wife. Very soon, the realities of marriage became painfully clear. Far from her family and only 16 years old, Maria Antonia found herself in an unfamiliar and difficult environment in Bavaria. Maximilian proved indifferent and unfaithful. The lively court life of Munich stood in sharp contrast to the young Electress's growing melancholy. Despite her efforts to please, Maria Antonia could not prevent her husband from maintaining what courtiers mockingly described as a great multitude of mistresses. Emotional distance soon deepened into mutual aversion. What had begun as a hopeful dynastic alliance became, within a few years, a personal ordeal. The situation grew even more painful through family tragedy. Maria Antonia became pregnant soon after the wedding, but her first children did not survive. In May 1689, she gave birth to a son, Leopold Ferdinand of Bavaria, who died at birth. The following year, in November 1690, she bore another son, Anton of Bavaria, who also died on the day he was born. These losses devastated the young mother. The Bavarian court longed for a healthy heir, yet after 2 failed pregnancies, Maria Antonia's emotional strength began to falter. Surrounded by strangers and with a distant husband, she endured those years in profound loneliness. Her letters reveal nostalgia for her homeland and for the simpler days of her childhood. Meanwhile, Maximilian Emmanuel appeared more concerned with military ambition and romantic pursuits than with comforting his wife. Having established himself as one of the Holy Roman Empire's leading generals after victories against the Ottomans, he spent long periods away on campaign or traveling. In Munich, rumors of his affairs were constant. Among his most notorious mistresses was the Italian Countess Agnes Lelouchier, known as Countess Canossa, whose presence in the elector's life was openly scandalous. Maria Antonia, bound by her rank and duty, endured these humiliations in silence. By 1691, The marriage was effectively broken in every sense but the formal one. In the summer of 1691, overcome with sorrow, Maria Antonia returned to Vienna under the pretext of visiting her father. No one imagined that the young Electress of Bavaria was leaving Munich never to return. At just 22, she sought refuge at the imperial court, far from her husband's infidelities and indifference. Shortly after her arrival, news from Madrid appeared to improve her position. In 1692, King Charles II formally appointed Maximilian Emmanuel governor of the Spanish Netherlands, fulfilling the promise negotiated years earlier. Before taking up his prestigious post in Brussels, the elector traveled briefly to Vienna in January 1692 to see Maria Antonia during the celebrations of her birthday. That short reunion had immediate consequences. After a long period of estrangement, the couple resumed their marital relations, and Maria Antonia became pregnant once more. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope for a viable heir. Maximilian Emmanuel, however, did not alter his behavior. After leaving his wife with child, he departed for Brussels to assume his governorship, while Maria Antonia remained in Vienna under the care of her family and imperial physicians. Officially, it was said that medical advice had recommended she avoid the rigors of travel. In reality, the elector preferred the company of his mistress, Countess Canossa, and the freedom he enjoyed away from his wife. This situation deeply angered Emperor Leopold I, who saw his daughter abandoned during pregnancy. He wrote to Maximilian, demanding that he separate himself from the Countess. The elector replied furiously, insisting that the emperor not interfere in his private life. The rupture between father-in-law and son-in-law added further strain to an already fragile dynastic balance. Despite everything, Maximilian Emmanuel sought to preserve appearances before the Spanish court, upon which his ambitions ultimately depended. From Brussels, he sent updates about Maria Antonia's condition to her grandmother, Queen Mariana of Austria. In one diplomatic letter, he assured her, "My dear wife continues her pregnancy in Vienna in very good health. I pray to God that all may turn out well." Publicly, he presented himself as a concerned and attentive husband. Privately, he continued his dissipated life. On October 28, 1692, Maria Antonia gave birth in Vienna to the long-awaited son. The child was baptized Joseph Ferdinand Leopold of Bavaria in honor of Archduke Joseph, Maria Antonia's half-brother, and of his grandfathers, Ferdinand, Maximilian's father, and Emperor Leopold I. The arrival of a healthy male heir unleashed relief and celebration across Europe. In Madrid, the news was received, according to the Bavarian ambassador, as if the king himself had had a son. The court has been in gala dress and the whole city illuminated. At last, it seemed the Spanish monarchy might secure an heir of both Habsburg and Wittelsbach blood. The elderly Queen Mariana, the child's great-grandmother, was said to have been overjoyed, seeing in the infant the continuation of her lineage. Yet the happiness was short-lived. The birth had been difficult, and Maria Antonia did not recover. In the weeks that followed, she developed severe puerperal fevers, likely caused by postpartum infection. She also sank into profound postnatal depression. Already weakened by years of emotional distress, the 23-year-old deteriorated rapidly. On December 24, 1692, barely 2 months after giving birth, Maria Antonia died in Vienna, far from the Spanish kingdom once envisioned as her destiny. In her final days, she faced death with clarity. Fully aware of her husband's betrayals, she sought to settle 2 matters: the future of her son and a reckoning for Maximilian. From her deathbed, she executed a remarkable testament. In it, she once again renounced, in her own name and in that of Joseph Ferdinand, any rights to the Spanish crown, reaffirming in writing the renunciation she had been compelled to sign years earlier. She also entirely disinherited Maximilian Emmanuel, excluding him from any benefit of her personal estate, and bequeathed all her property directly to her infant son. With this act, Maria Antonia ensured that her husband could not exploit her inheritance or dynastic claims for his own advantage. It was a final assertion of control, a measured but unmistakable blow to Maximilian's ambitions, born of accumulated humiliation and sorrow. Ironically, her last renunciation did little to alter the broader succession crisis. In Madrid, the testament was not officially recognized. The Castilian Cortes argued that such an abdication of rights was invalid without their consent. Thus, after Maria Antonia's death, her son Joseph Ferdinand of Bavaria continued to be regarded across much of Europe as a legitimate heir to the Spanish throne. Maximilian Emmanuel, widowed and legally excluded from guardianship in her will, remained formally sidelined, yet he never abandoned the hope of seeing his son crowned in Madrid. Fate, however, had other plans for the young prince, in a story that would unfold beyond the life of Maria Antonia herself. The life of Maria Antonia of Austria was as brief as it was significant. In just 23 years, this Austro-Spanish Archduchess found herself at the center of the great dynastic question of her time. Her premature death, followed a few years later by that of her young son, left the Spanish monarchy without a viable Habsburg heir, and triggered a succession crisis on a European scale. That vacuum led to the War of the Spanish Succession, a conflict that marked the end of the Habsburg dynasty on the Spanish throne. Although she never reigned, Maria Antonia left an indelible mark on history. She was the last great hope of the House of Austria in Spain, and her truncated destiny illustrates how, in Baroque Europe, dynastic ambitions could determine a person's fate. Her memory endures as a symbol of an era in which the pursuit of power outweighed individual happiness. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this video. We hope you have enjoyed it. If you have anything to add, please share it in the comments section. Do leave us a like and share this link with your friends and family so that more people can learn about this story. Thank you for following us. And if you have not yet subscribed, we invite you to do so and activate notifications, as we regularly publish historical content that may interest you. We look forward to seeing you in the next video.